Hello, America, and hello, nuclear aficionados around the world. Welcome to nuclear.com Daily. I'm Steve Schulin of nuclear.com, and it is a pleasure and an honor to be part of your day this Christmas Eve. Hope you all have a great and delightful holiday. There's a little bit in the news nuclear-wise today. We'll get into that. I'd just like to emphasize that those of you listening in later via podcast or new this week on our YouTube version of this. Heck, I record this here in my office on my computer, and I figured why not go ahead and add a video outreach. And in addition to the nuclear.com daily show, I'm also doing shorter video news stories periodically. So go ahead and do a search for nuclear.com daily on YouTube and subscribe to that channel, and you'll get more than these daily noontime shows. I'm running a little bit late. I rescheduled the show today for 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm tickled to see folks here in the talk shoe window. Welcome. Please feel welcome to put any comments or questions you have in there, and after I get through the news, I'll take a look and see. Well, let's see. One of the nice things about the YouTube version is I hold up the front pages of the newspapers and show you the articles that I'm talking about. Like my top story today is a piece out of Carlsbad, New Mexico, and it's their top story in the current Argus newspaper about a local city councilman there in Carlsbad who's, after serving a term there on the city council, he's now running for the county commission. And one of his areas of emphasis is how to expand the nuclear industry in Carlsbad. Now, you know, Carlsbad is the home of the Waste Isolation Pilot Project, and there's an awful lot of interest in that town after seeing the good paying jobs, the quality of the people that are attracted to the jobs that require specialized training and education to get into, but also the good paying jobs that don't require specialized nuclear background or scientific background. The folks there in Carlsbad would like to see more of this, and so many of them are interested in expanding the business. Anyway, best wishes to City Councilman Jason Shirley in his efforts running for county commission. The article mentions that he wants to develop a national plan to help support the growing nuclear industries inside his county. Very cool. I urge folks to support candidates who best represent their views, and check out Jason Shirley there in Carlsbad, New Mexico. All right, next, Fukushima in the news. Japan Times, their lead story today. Fukushima cleanup to take 3 extra years. Well, we're still very early in the process. They're talking many decades. Who knows how long that's going to be. In the United States, Vermont papers were filled on the front pages with story about decommissioning of Vermont Yankee, like the Montpelier Times Argus. Vermont and Entergy have Yankee deal is their top story. And the same story is in their sister paper, not quite as close to the top as the other one, the Rutland Herald. They title it, Governor Schulin and Entergy reach a deal. And the Brattleboro Reformer, the most local paper, their story was reprinted in the Bennington Banner front page as the lead story, and they titled it, Declaring Peace, Entergy and the State Reach a Grand Bargain. And Anyway, it says under the plan, decommissioning could start in the 2020s. So there's still a safe store aspect to this agreement. Anyway, congratulations, Vermont, on driving clean, safe energy out of your state. The sarcasm, sorry. Internationally, Iran in the headlines. Let's see, here's the Jerusalem Post today. And their story is Iran's President Rouhani wants trust while U.S. promises to verify any nuclear deal. I'll tell you what, I'm getting so disgusted. This was a 6-month deal, and they signed on to it a month ago, and the 6-month clock hadn't even started ticking yet. So it's automatically a 7-month deal already. The subhead, National Security Advisor Rice says the U.S. does not want Iran to be able to race towards a bomb undetected. Slightly different emphasis from earlier in the Obama administration, which had been consistent with previous administrations, where they say a nuclear weapons Iran is unacceptable. I don't see that in the Secretary Rice headline. Let's see, the newspaper out of the United Arab Emirates, the Gulf News, they also put this story near the top. Rouhani to discard extreme approaches. Extreme approaches. Oh, merciful kingdom. The Arab Times out of Kuwait is talking about the sanctions bill in the Senate. U.S. will seek Iran sanction triggers. This is an interesting approach. It's a conditional bill saying that if Iran does not fulfill their obligations under this 6-month deal, then new sanctions will be imposed. Of course, Iran is saying that even applying the existing sanctions is an insult to them and likely to sabotage the deal. Personally, I look at Iran's behavior since these sites were first, these nuclear sites were first announced in 2003, and I say it's clear that they have been buying time through all these diplomatic negotiations. As a matter of fact, their diplomats have, after they've served their terms, they've been bragging about how they used the negotiations to buy their time. It's like they think it's a done deal that they will become a nuclear weapons state, even though they haven't announced their decision to do so. Very sticky wicket. What do we do as Americans? Do we support this 6-month deal? Well, I don't see any other alternative but to pray that our leaders show greater wisdom in the coming 6 months than they have in the previous 10 years when it comes to Iran. You know, George W. Bush was president when these facilities, the existence of these facilities, the clandestine construction of a nuclear weapons program, when they were first revealed. And then President Bush, he was already taking an awful lot of heat unilaterally for being a cowboy and going it alone. And he had his hands full internationally with, the response to 9/11, and that included the military troops in Afghanistan and the military troops in Iraq. And he handed off the Iran unpleasantness to Europe and said, you guys take the lead. I'm not going to be the cowboy on this. And Europe dicked around. Oh, mercy. All right. Final stories on the front pages dealt with India launching a new rocket, and that made little side panel stories in a couple of Indian papers. The Deccan Chronicle, in the Bengaluru edition, as well as the Kochi edition. They put it a little bit further up with a picture of a new missile being tested, the Agni 3, nuclear capable, strike range of more than 3,000 kilometers. So that's the front pages. Last night I posted a YouTube video about a new post that I made there at news.nuclear.com. And it was about an advisory committee on reactor safeguards transcript that was released by NRC yesterday. And it talked about something that I really had not been aware of until reading this transcript. And that is new evidence, just within the last 10 or 12 years, that has been mounting that higher burn-up fuel appears to behave differently under loss of coolant accident conditions. And fuel becomes fragmented and pulverized into like sandy substance was the way it was described by the scientific presenter from the NRC Office of Research. And apparently the higher the burnup, the bigger the risk of dispersion of fine fuel fragments is. So anyway, a very, very interesting article. You can see the video. That's about 8 minutes on YouTube, or you can read the full article with a link to the transcript. Usually I go ahead and download these new documents released by NRC and post them there in the archives at nuclear.com, and I give you a direct link to it. But I can't do that on copyrighted items. And this transcript, in addition to the transcript, which is not copyrighted, but the PDF file includes a copyrighted presentation slide package from the Electric Power Research Institute. And so the entire PDF file released by NRC is considered, since it contains some copyrighted material, it's considered copyrighted. And anyway, so I give you the link that NRC provides on their Atoms system to download it. And if you have any trouble, I give you the accession number there on Atoms, where you can just click the PDF for it. Anyway, so that's the front page news. The last couple of days, I have not gone through the Nuclear Energy Institute's daily emails, and let's catch up. Yesterday's email, their top story, was one that we did cover from the Boston Globe about the Pilgrim nuclear plant. NEI titles it, Massachusetts nuclear plant gains importance as a stable power provider. Next, U.S. lab helping China research thorium reactors. That ties in with another story that we saw in the Chinese press, Chinese propagandizing press, about how the U.S. is helping China in a variety of energy issues, including nuclear. Here's how NEI describes the Reuters article from a few days ago. Oak Ridge National Lab in Tennessee is helping the Chinese Academy of Sciences in its quest to develop thorium-fueled reactors. Quote, if a thorium molten salt reactor can be successfully developed, it will remove all fears about nuclear energy, said Fang Jingqing, a retired nuclear researcher at the China Institute of Atomic Energy. Isn't it interesting that the United States taxpayer money is going to help China develop thorium reactors, and how come new reactor designs aren't being we do have small modular reactors, and even though they have many advances, they're basically light water reactors. Most of them, anyway. How come we're not having these advances in new build reactors here in the United States? How come Bill Gates, when he's pursuing his traveling wave reactor company, how come he throws up his hands in despair at the prospect of ever getting a new reactor design licensed here in the United States? And he goes to China too. Something's terribly amiss in our regulatory approach to new reactor designs. Next, U.S. and Taiwan update nuclear cooperation deal with a link to Focus Taiwan website. The U.S. government will supply nuclear fuel and facilities to Taiwan's nuclear power plants under an agreement signed last week. The agreement will take effect upon legislative approval in both countries and will remain in force indefinitely. No expiration. Interesting. International. Japan's prime minister rejects calls for eliminating nuclear energy. Shinzo Abe says he wants to reduce but not eliminate Japan's use of nuclear energy. The quality of people's lives will be lost unless we supply electricity stably and cheaply, he said. I agree. One of my mottos has long been, your average Joe today lives better in many ways than kings of old because of cheap and abundant electrical power. England, story out of the London Guardian. Well, I guess now it's the London Guardian. It used to be the Manchester Guardian. Committee proposes up to 50 nuclear plants in the United Kingdom. The UK government could build as many as 50 nuclear power plants, according to a document submitted by the Committee on Radioactive Waste Management. Quote, nuclear energy is vital for our energy security, and we want it to be part of the energy mix in the future, but we haven't set any targets for the amount of new nuclear to be developed, said a government spokeswoman. It reminds me of the joke about people who are losing money on selling each item and they try to make it up by volume. I don't see how the United Kingdom can afford even the one deal that they've set. The strike price is so high for the proposed EDF built plants, and they're bringing in China. Even with that high strike price, EDF can't afford to go it on their own. They're bringing in China as a partner. People are already in England choosing between eating and not freezing, and forcing people to pay 4 times more for their power than could be obtained through natural gas plants. Doesn't seem like a smart choice to me. So when they say 50 nuclear plants in the United Kingdom, for the environmental reasons, I'm leaping with joy. Nuclear power is the safest way to generate a lot of power, but at the price that they're asking, I'm sorry, it's too much. Natural gas is relatively clean. Oh, I know it emits carbon dioxide, and those of you who listen regularly know that I don't give a whit of credence to the CO2 climate alarmism. Final story, Russia. World Nuclear News had an item on the 20th. Russia to spend $2.4 billion for nuclear industry growth, including $680 million subsidy for constructing nuclear plants in foreign countries. Thanks, NEI. Today's NEI's email, their top story is about Vermont Yankee decommissioning plan. They title it, Vermont and Entergy agree to decommissioning plan for Vermont Yankee. Decommissioning of Entergy's Vermont Yankee nuclear power plant will begin 120 days after the necessary funds for the process have been acquired, said Governor Peter Schulin. We believe decommissioning should be able to happen, notwithstanding unforeseen developments, a lot sooner than 60 years. He said Entergy has also agreed to remove used nuclear fuel from the plant's used fuel pool and allocate $10 million over 5 years for local economic development. No kidding, $10 million for local economic development. I wonder if this was a shakedown from Governor Schulin. What did they see was the need for? I mean, they've been treated with contempt in Vermont. They must be getting something for their $10 million. Another Vermont story out of the Brattleboro Reformer. Vermont Yankee properly addressed security issue, NRC says, and this has to do with the security guard, the armed responder who was involved in some undetailed violation. We mentioned that story in one of the papers yesterday on the front page, or over the weekend, about that. It was a severity level 4 violation. And they say, because Entergy took appropriate steps to address the situation and promptly reported to the NRC concluded that it had minor security significance and today notified the plant that it was a non-cited violation. International stories. Well, they take that Japan Times story on 3 extra years. And here's how NEI describes it. 2017 is new target for decontaminating areas near Fukushima plant. The decontamination of the areas around Fukushima Daiichi will take an additional 3 years to complete. According to Japan's Environment Ministry, the cleanup, originally scheduled to be done by March 31st, 2014, is on target to be completed by fiscal 2017, government officials said. Well, I'm surprised to hear that the cleanup is on target for anything. Romania, new build. Got some bad news. Agency France press story. ArcelorMittal and Enel to pull out of Romanian nuclear plant construction. Italy's Enel and the Romanian subsidiary of ArcelorMittal will no longer take part in the construction of 2 reactors at the Cernavoda nuclear plant in Romania. Officials said the energy companies will sell their stakes in the project company, which is called Energo Nuclear. China and Pakistan to continue nuclear collaboration. Headline only from Associated Press of Pakistan. NEI will not be publishing their email on Christmas Day tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining in. I hope you have a delightful rest of the week. Wonderful Christmas Day. And those of you in the nuclear biz, make it another safe one, my friends. This is Steve Schulin signing off for nuclear.com daily.